Of course, the air kicks on as soon as we start. Okay. Hey guys, welcome back to this episode of Under the Sun podcast with your host, Emily Johnson. And you this is where
I just figured she was going to introduce herself. And I, Leah Colgan.
Yeah, we're excited to be back here with you this week. We have an exciting podcast lined up today. We're going to talk about healing and I forgot healing and what?
Yeah, I think just healing, maybe what holds us back from actually like achieving healing.
Yeah, for one thing, it takes hard work to heal.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable. But yeah, how would you?
Yeah. So I would say like initially, for myself, I think it was a two-part thing, right? So first, not even knowing there was an option. Like I still think back of like, and I think I had shared this in our very first podcast, but just this idea of like, no one told me, like, you're like, how many times are we like, I wish someone had just told me. Yeah. Like, I wish I knew that diagnoses weren't forever, that medication didn't have to be a permanent thing. Like, I just don't think
you can question your diagnosis.
Yeah. And I just don't think that like I had, so I think that's part of it. It's like, for me, like, I don't know if I found healing as early as I would have liked to, because I just didn't even know it was an option.
Yeah.
So I think that is for sure. And I see that in so many people where you talk to people, and I feel like I have clients all the time that are like, oh, I just thought this was because my grandma had it and my mom had it and I had it and my sister has it. And I just figured I couldn't do anything about it. So
it was genetic.
Yeah. And so I think sometimes it's just, we don't know healing is possible.
Yeah.
I think that was one thing just from I don't know if you felt like that or if you ever had that.
People want a label to slap on it. They want a reason. They want a reason to, for me, it's like, I wanted a reason to make an excuse of why I felt the way I felt. It's like, oh, I'm super tired because I have this thing. It's like, no, it just, you eat like crap. You eat Jack's Pizza, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you need some nutrients.
Yeah.
Which is a whole other topic of like, I didn't know I wasn't eating good. To me, having a salad every couple of days, I was like, man, I'm so healthy.
Yeah. And I think it's because we judge it based on other people. So people will say to me all the time, they'll be like, well, I know I don't eat as healthy as you. And I'm like, well, first of all, you actually have no idea what I eat. Some days I do great, and other days things slip in that I know better, but it still happens. But then we're so quick to just be like, well, I eat better than my mom, or I eat better than the girl down the street, and I'm still sick, so I don't understand. So food isn't the factor, there. So I think that for sure is like one huge reason why, for myself as well as other people I've seen, like they don't know healing is possible, and things are given as such definitive diagnoses, which I think we've talked on here. I really don't like the word diagnosis because it feels so incredibly permanent. And I think that we take on such identity and ownership often over those. And so I think that there is often, and I would say like, you could probably say this in churches and like communities and other things, it's difficult for us to enter in a new space without someone inviting us in. And I find that like sometimes in the holistic world, it almost takes like, and I think the beauty of social media or podcasts like this is hopefully we can get in front of people and just present a message of like, never stop asking why, like, why is this happening? And it's okay to like fight for something better. But a lot of times people just don't know. And it takes somebody inviting them in and saying like,
or saying, that's not normal.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, it's not?
It's not?
Oh.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I thought my kid just barked because he was weird. Like, I had no idea.
Kid barked?
Not my kid. But I've heard like people be like,
kids.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have kids, so this is news to me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Again,
I mean, there's all sorts of things I feel like that kids do. And it's just like, oh, well, that's just Billy. That's just how he is. Or, oh, well,
we can't just go past this. I'm sorry. We have to go back. I can't, because like,
you're stuck on the barking thing.
Because, so the idea is that we're both in completely different fields, but like we have, I'm part-time, not part-time granola. I'm just like, I love health.
You say part-time granola.
No, well, like I love health and I'm like a nerd about it. Ask my husband, but I only know so much.
My brain immediately was like, is this grain-free granola?
Yeah.
Is this, what kind of
well, that's
granola
what they
are
call
we
like
talking?
hippies granola, like you know.
Yes.
Anyways, I'm as holistic as the knowledge that I have, so I'm still
Sure,
growing in that
sure.
fashion. But I've never
Heard
heard.
someone
And if
barking?
I was listening to this and the second host didn't probe about that, you have to tell me why kids bark. You have to.
Okay. I mean, there can be a lot of reasons why kids react in different things. So I would say often it would be some form of brain inflammation. You know, like there was either an injury to the brain or there was infection or something that just causes kids. So here, when you think about kids, they're always, always, always communicating to us. They just communicate in different ways. Sometimes, right? Like a great example that most of us can resonate with is like, my tummy hurts. Every time I have to take a test at school, all of a sudden I'm sick and my tummy hurts.
Yeah.
Right? And like for a lot of us, it happens so much or we experience it that we're like, oh, that's just nerves, babe.
Yeah.
Like that's just nerves. Like I remember my brother would get sick before vacations often. Like he was just excited to go and it was like he'd just get sick. Like
Aww.
it was like his body was just like, oh, you know, because our bodies don't always know, am I being chased by a bear? Or am I fighting a chronic infection that feels like, you know, that you're in that state of attack? Or is this a really bad thunderstorm outside and I had a trauma and mom maybe screamed at me during this, or I was stuck in a tornado, or I had something really dramatic happen. And now every time I hear that wind, it comes back to me, you know, and our bodies hold on to that. So I think, so there's those, you know, ideas that happen around just inflammation, and then kids communicate. And how are they communicating? A kid banging his head against a wall, to some people it's like, well, that's just weird. And other people are like, it's just my kid. And I'm pretty sure it was my sister. I may have this wrong, but I'm pretty sure my younger sister like put herself to sleep by banging her head against the crib.
That's like what kids I've seen.
Yeah.
I've seen videos where like, oh, my kid just does this before she goes to bed. I'm like,
right.
That's
Versus
weird.
like, what are they communicating to us? Is there something in their head that they're like, oh my word, like does it make it feel better? Does it rebalance their nervous system by doing something? And so kids are talking. So when kids are on the floor barking or fake coughing or hitting their legs, does their leg actually hurt and they're just hitting it because it's like makes it feel better? Or are they actually nervous? Like, I mean, there's so much. This is a whole conversation of deep diving into, but the point being, often we go to our experts and we're told that that is okay, or that's normal behavior, because on all these other things and spectrums or whatever, like that's normal and it's fine. That's just your kid. Now there's normal kid behavior and kids do goofy things. I'm not saying everything is a parasite or everything is like a trauma, but it is interesting when you see kids improve. And my son used to eat paper all the time. And I would get so much
ate paper all the time.
Yeah. And like he would put rocks in his mouth. Like he was always like had like an oral fixation almost. And again, this is a whole pretty long rabbit trail here. But the short version is people would come at me with that I wasn't parenting well because of his behavior, because that's not normal.
Yeah.
Or
I would be like, mind your own damn
yes,
business.
like why is he doing this? You know, kind of thing. And I was one that felt words were put on me when I was little to a large degree of like, and it was sometimes just joking or whatever, but I was like trying to be very, very cautious of like agreeing with words that were put on him. I'm like, is this truth? Is this really who he is? Is he a weirdo? Like, because he's doing something that other children aren't doing. So I was told to a lot of therapies and different things that like, oh, get him these bracelets, get him these things, because like we just have some developmental, you know, things. So it's okay. Like just let him do that. And again, I was like, I'm also not okay. I'm not okay with him eating paper, but I'm not okay with just like giving him a pacifier essentially to like chew on in school, because that I was like, no, like there's something wrong here.
Yeah.
You know? And so we dug deeper and have worked on a lot of healing. But all of that to say, I feel like kids are always communicating with us. It just takes, so I will, again, I feel like we're deviating.
No,
but
it's
like,
great. It's good information.
We are huge Smallville fans.
I love Smallville.
Okay, and I did not.
What about your abilities? Like, shut up. What are you talking about? No.
No, but
Martha, she was
Yes.
always like,
but you said it in a weird.
She has like a speech impediment. Where she's
Yes.
like Quark. She never says Clark. She says Quark.
Oh.
Quark.
guess
What
I've
about your abilities? And it's like, and it's not like
never
the actress has.
noticed.
It's not like the act. I've looked into this. She does not have
Okay.
a speech impediment. She just does it for her like. It's gonna ruin it for you now.
Okay.
Now you're gonna be like, why is there no L? Why is there a W? Quark.
Yeah, I've never ever noticed this. Now I'm gonna have to like go
And
back
also
and
like
watch.
Lana, I'm like, I hate you, Lana. Like
no.
just.
But,
Anyways.
like so, this is, I don't know. Maybe this is bad. We're just rabbit trailing really, really hard here.
Our ADD. It's getting later in the evening, but it's fine.
But our first year of marriage, we had no money. We had like a couch that was my grandma's. And to me, like, I don't know, I had a weird, like, it just wasn't comfortable. Like, I was very thankful that she gave it to us, but like, I wouldn't sit on it for whatever reason. And all we had was like this tiny little TV with like a DVD player. So we didn't get TV, we didn't have cable, like, we didn't have a computer, like, nothing was streamed like it is now.
Yeah.
And all we had was all the episodes of Smallville. So that was our thing. We would eat dinner together on his nights off and we would watch Smallville. And I'd never ever seen it before. But there's this one particular episode, I promise this has a point.
No, that's okay. I probably know what episode.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. Go ahead.
So, and I mean, it literally will still absolutely bring me to tears every single time. Like I even like watch it or bring it up. So there's this part in Smallville where Clark starts to get his hearing. He gets his super power hearing, right? And he hears everything. And it's literally driving him insane to where like he can't do anything because he hears it all and it's just too much. And so he's like freaking out or whatever. And he's in the garage, or I'm sorry, in the barn. And his parent, he's like getting all upset, like turning on all these machines and everything to try to drown out all the noise.
Yeah.
So mom and dad come out and he's like, you know, it's a time sensitive thing. He has to figure out how to use his ability so he can find his friend and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And dad says to him, okay, listen to my voice. Listen to my voice. And he just he's whispering, right? Listen to my voice, drown everything out. Just listen to my voice. And he walks him through. And I feel like this is such a beautiful thing for kids, especially. Like I think every kid has a superpower. And it's up to us parents to weed through all the noise and help them make sense. There's all this chaos and there's all this noise. And instead of just being like, here's a pacifier to just be quiet, you're not normal, let's put you in special classes, let's do whatever. It's like, no, this is a gift. So what is the superpower? Let me help drown out all of the background noise so you can focus on who you were meant to be.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. I like, seriously, like when I see kids and I hear moms, whatever, I'm like, no, there's a superhero in them. Like, let's pull it out.
Yeah.
But it takes a parent, I think, or a special person, doesn't always have to be a parent, but to step into these spaces with these kids and be like, I know you're barking. But like I heard a story of a girl who would get sick and then eat it. And mom never ever reacted. Mom is like, you know what? There's something wrong here. I love you. And she just kept speaking life into her as she healed. And she never ever, you know, spoke in a way that was negative or made the girl think she was weird or whatever. Like she just kept speaking life and kept healing. And again, it's like, holy cow, like she could see, mom helped her see past all the noise.
That's what parents are supposed to do. Do you think it's just that parents are so like not traditional parents, I don't know the verbiage, but like parents are kind of who are stuck on that wheel of like, you go to school, you get your vaccinations, you get in sports, and then you're super busy with sports. You just get, I'll bleep it out. But if you know, you know, like they're on this hamster wheel of like, we just gotta,
it's expectations.
we gotta get this to the next day. Just get to the next day. Cause like, I don't have time to, cause people are busy and sick and tired. And then think people just don't.
So again,
they don't care, but they don't have the time.
know what is possible.
Yeah.
Right. So again, to use this Smallville analogy, like dad knows what he's capable of. Even if dad has this desire to hold him close and protect him, he knows he's been given for something more.
Well, and then I also, take that to not just kids who are barking, because that was a new thing for me to just learn. But like, I also didn't know that how unhealthy I had gotten, like that some things weren't genetic. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
I was just a year ago, probably year and a half ago, I was still a little bit on that same hamster wheel of like, oh, I'll probably just, I'll probably gain weight once I'm past 30, because it's just kind of what happens in my family. Like my dad has said since I was a kid, he's like, oh, once you turn 30, 32, your digestion is just done and it just stops working. And that's just what I heard as a kid. It's like, oh, it's gonna stop working. Okay.
Yeah.
So like, but when I started working with you and a little bit before that, I was like, that doesn't have to be true, right? Like there has to be something more to that. And I don't know if that was like God just putting it of like, hey, questioning the status quo of like, oh, this is just life. You'll get bad knees because it's genetic.
Yeah.
But
did you ever watch or read, the Max Lucado book, You Are Special? Okay, so you need to read it.
Is it a kid's book?
It is totally a kid's book, but it will make you cry every time.
Aww.
And anybody in the audience, like, if you have not read this book, you need to go look it up. So it is basically about these wooden people who all live in this village, and they give each other stickers. You get a sticker for something good and you get a sticker for something bad. And so you can see externally if they've done a lot of good things or if they've done a lot of bad things. And so there's this main character who has all these dots on him, and dots were like bad. And he never ever would get like a star sticker.
Aww.
So one day he meets this girl who has no stickers. And he's like, how do you not have a sticker? And she says, well, I go sit with Eli, the carpenter who made all these people. She said, I go sit with him every day and he tells me who I am. And stickers only stick if you let them stick.
Oh.
And so anyway, the end of it is, Punchinello walking out of the carpenter's, off or room or whatever, and realizing like, does this have to stick on me? And like one of his stickers falls off.
Aww.
And I think that is such a beautiful.
Labels. It's like the things you hear as a kid of like, you're just not that smart, which is like what I got as a kid. And,
and I think that it transitions into parenting. And then all of a sudden you're like for me, like it was really hard when someone was like, what are you going to do about that? Like, are you, I felt like I wasn't disciplining him enough. I wasn't, like, what was wrong with me? Like all these other kids over here seem like they're behaving normally. And like, was I not disciplining enough? Like I stayed home with him. I loved on him. I was doing the best I could. Like it's easy to take on that label. And I think because of that, we're less likely to fight because we don't even see it in us, the ability to have that superpower. And if we don't see that capability in our own life, then how will we ever see it in our kids? If no one called us out of it, if no one has called and said, hi, Leah, you are special and you are unique and you have this amazing gift in these things. Don't let the distractions of your health and your fatigue and your tiredness, don't let the enemy take that. Like gain it back, figure out what you want, right? And I think we've talked about this. I think another thing that really holds people back in their health is this idea of they don't know what they want.
Yeah.
They don't know what they want. So
because they never had it usually, right? Because I'm guessing they've never been at 100%.
Right.
Do any of us ever get to 100%? I don't know. But
yeah,
like, do they not even, are they so deep in the hole that they can't even feel like they can't imagine what it would feel like to feel 10% better? Because even if I think about the beginning of my health journey with you, it was like even feeling that 5% better. It was like, oh my gosh, the sun is shining. You're watching Nemo.
Yes.
So we always say the sun is shining. Wait, today is the day. The sun is shining. The tank is clean. The tank is clean. It's like, but even feeling like that 5% better, like it was hard to even imagine that it could happen because it's easier to see things for other people, I think, than for yourself. And so if you don't take that. I always say,
because again, you were told, this is just who you are.
Yeah.
Here's your dot. Here's your sticker.
Oh.
This is who you are. And it takes somebody to come out and say, that's not who you are.
Yeah.
You were actually this. Like I've sat with people before. And so for my own personal story, which again, this is probably a deviation here, but
this is our podcast. We can do whatever we want.
I don't know. It's my personality being like, I'm not following the script. I'm sorry.
There is no script. We're the script. Oh, I'm just kidding.
But like I would have always classified myself as a very type A person. Things need to be a certain way and in a particular order. And like otherwise, like I will have a meltdown. So when my kids didn't behave and when I would stay up till like 2 a.m. cleaning the house, which I still do sometimes because it's just how life is. And sometimes it's like, I just want to love and serve my family, so I will do this. But it was out of a need of like, things have to be a certain way. And I would hate it when people would stop by and just like show up unannounced, which I had several people in my life that would just show up unannounced. And I was like,
that's the worst thing you could ever do. If you show up to someone's house unannounced, there's a special place in hell for you. I'm just kidding.
Wow.
That's a little dark. But
we went really dark on that one.
No, but seriously, like, I feel like Jesus is going to have some things to say to you at the gate, because that's just wrong. Like, that's wrong. You should not.
That is hilarious.
That is like my biggest pet peeve.
But like, that would drive me nuts, right? Like, I mean, to the point where it would ruin my day. Like it ruined relationships because I'd be outside and people would be on a walk and they'd want to stop and talk. And I'm like, I can't handle it. My day's done. You called me on the phone and I was not planning for this. And so to me, it was like, I was very type A. Like I needed that system. But as I've healed, I realized that's not who I am. I was told that's who I was. I was told I was a people person, a people pleaser. So I had to say yes to everybody who walked through those doors. So then I had to create boundaries because this is who I am. What if I actually am not type A at all? But because I was so sick and my nervous system was so on edge that if things weren't in control, I would just blow out. Like I couldn't handle any more stimulation. I couldn't handle deviation because I didn't know how to get back on track because it took so much effort to find the track to begin with. And like, as I've healed, I'm like, oh no, I'm actually really laid back and like, meh, it'll get to it when we get to it. It'd be fine. All I need is today. Jesus, give me the strength for today. I won't worry. Now, it somewhat has gotten me in trouble with like kids' birthdays and things where I'm like, oh wait, today's your birthday. Ooh, sorry. Want to go to the store? Like, and so, but like just this idea that like, maybe so much of who we are isn't really who we are.
Yeah.
We just have been told that's who we are.
Well, because when you're young, you cling to the words that adults talk, like speak over you. Like you don't realize you're doing it as a kid, but it's like, oh yes, because I actually don't know anything about myself because I'm not that self-aware yet. Yeah. But you said that, or one grumpy aunt said this, and it's like, oh, okay, that's right. The sticker.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so, I mean, do we think healing is possible when we've just been told this is who you are?
Yeah.
And like, we don't know what we want because we've already shut down the possibility that what we want is not within our reach because that's not in our genetic makeup. That's not in your identity because you weren't designed that way. You are not an entrepreneur. I'm sorry, you're not creative. You're not whatever.
Yeah, there's no one in the family that's ever started a business.
No.
We've always just, it's,
you're not smart. You can't go to college. Like, you can go to college and have a job. Like, that doesn't, but just this idea of like, we don't know what we want. So like you had mentioned in a previous podcast or, a podcast we had done about like how you had wrote down these goals. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh wait, I did achieve those goals, right? And so I think that one of the things that we can do that helps us figure out how we want to heal. So then we like, how do you heal if you don't know what you want?
Yeah.
And then how do you realize you've healed if you never go back to those?
Yeah.
And so I think that like understanding what we want,
with any goal, like you have to write it down, look at it, visit it every day, or me, it's every couple of days. I'm like, oh yeah, that's why I'm doing this. Okay. All right. And because thoughts are fleeting and I forget things, but like, you have to remind yourself of like, also, what am I fighting for? Because like for Dave and I, I'm like, he had such bad spinal pain. I'm like, okay, somebody has to take initiative for him. And like, I started on the health journey just to help him because I was like, I'm fine. Because I was not aware of anything about my body besides like my menstrual cycle. Like that's the only thing I was aware of. And like I got into it because of him. I lost where I was going with this, but what were we talking about before?
I don't know, because my brain is already on to, you said something, it sparked an idea, and then I was like, oh yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Let me think, just give me a second. I'll cut this out. Oh, but that like, so Dave had this label of like, oh, his dad had back pain. He's gonna have back pain. And then his story that he always said was that like his dad wished that he would have had kids earlier because he was in so much pain by the time he had kids. He couldn't really play with them the way he wanted to play. And so Dave always said before we even got married, he's like, I want to have kids early so that I can get down and play with them and not be sore. Yeah, before my genetic back goes out.
Yeah.
And basically we've been on this whole long journey of being like, okay, that's actually not the truth. Just because someone made their own health choices doesn't mean that that's your story to tell.
Right. And I think
he was wearing stickers from his dad.
Yeah. And I do think like there's like so much, I don't know if it's like some of it can be in our actual genetic code.
Some, yeah.
But some of it is toxins that we've shared. And so there is things that run in families.
Yeah.
And then there's words put on us because of that generation. And then I think there's generational trauma.
Yeah.
That then spills over to each person thereafter. So there is something about families, like you can't just totally dismiss, but it's always, again, going back to this question of why, why does it happen? And so I think that, again, not knowing what you want and then not pairing it with like, but why am I like this? Why does my grandma have this? Why does every man in my family line have low testosterone and every female has problems getting pregnant and every there's allergies and asthma and back pain, like why obesity, like why diabetes, like it just could go on and on. Like, well, no, it's just what you have. So,
yeah. Well, I always I don't even know where you said it or when you said it because we have a lot of conversations, even like outside the podcast. Like most of the time there's like when we record this podcast, there's like 30 to 40 minutes of talk before and after that y'all miss. But you said at one point that at one point in your healing process, you were like, I would ask God, is this truly who I am? Or is this, I don't remember exactly how you said it, but like, is this true? Is this true who I am? Like, am I a type A? And you had to like work through that for yourself. Cause like, again, my favorite motto is nobody's going to do it for you.
Yeah.
Like I was talking with a friend who is, I think, one of your clients. And she was like, oh, I want to be healthy. I feel so sick, but I won't cut out dairy. No way. She's like, I can't do it. I love cheese so much. I eat it breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I love it. And I was like, then you must not feel that bad. But I'm also a pretty harsh person because I feel passionate about it. Because I'm like, I felt like crap.
And you're going to see something in someone and you're calling it out.
Because I also have that personality where to a certain extent, I want you to call me out too. Because it's helpful. Sometimes that people can see things in you that you can't see. I was like, then you must not feel that bad then. She's like, oh no, I feel terrible, awful, like the worst in my entire life. I'm like, then if you felt that terrible, you would do anything to not feel that way. Even cutting out something you love so silly, cheese. Like you can't cut out a food for even a month to see if it makes you feel better. Yeah. Like you can't, I don't know. I would struggle as an NTP. I'd be like, suck it up, do better. Like if you really want this, do it. But she was like, oh, okay. And she was like, oh yeah, I didn't eat dairy. Like a couple days later, she's like, I didn't eat dairy all day. And I'm like,
yes,
good.
Yeah. Yeah, because we don't know what capacity we hold.
No.
Because again, we just aren't spoken. Like what would the world look like if parents, starting with parents and then friends and then, spouses and everything, like what if we had the ability to see something in them?
Yeah.
And to speak it and to be like, this is who you are. And it's not a negative something. It's not a diagnosis. It's not a condition. It's not like you're a brat. Yeah. Like, oh my goodness, like see past that.
Yeah.
And who are they really at their heart? Like, are they caring? Are they loving? Are they, so my son is, you could throw a lot of words in there. My daughter too, but she tends to be easier to see this. But with my son, it's like sometimes you have to go through all this noise and be like, you're creative. This is why you make messes.
Yeah.
This is why you're, you drive me nuts with all your questions. This is why you make a mess out of crafts and you get obsessed about things, like, because you're very creative and you're curious and you want to know why things work.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But when we put on the, just be quiet, just sit down, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden,
and think about that long term.
Shut up and sit down.
Yeah.
And then we do.
Yeah.
Because we're like, oh, this is something wrong with me.
Yeah. Because imagine if your parent is always like, just go be quiet, just go play on your iPad, which, whatever. But like, imagine like the bright colored stickers or the stars that you're putting on him because you're like, wow, you're really creative, or you're really eager to learn.
Yeah.
Like, and that will carry weight with him through his whole life. Because like, I remember being a kid, I didn't think about it until you just said it, but like, I was a kid who was always like, why do car wheels do that thing? Like, how does that car even run? Like, how does that even work? And then I remember someone being like, just stop talking. Because I talked a lot. And then I became a kid who didn't talk much. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Screw you, sticker.
And now she's got a podcast.
It's all healing
yes.
trauma. Even like,
because again, asking the question, is this who I am?
Yeah.
Does this belong to me? Does this belong to someone else?
Yeah.
You know, is this at my core? Do I feel that this is who I am? And if it's a negative thing, it's probably because you've come into agreement with that.
Yeah.
That's still not who you are, but being willing to let it go if it's not who you are.
Are there like 1, 2, 3 books that you would recommend, or like, I don't know, any tips that you would recommend?
So I'm not always great at like pulling things up, right? I'm like, if I think about it and sit on them, I'm like, ooh, so maybe I'll add some to the show notes too, for sure, afterwards. A couple that come to mind at this point, for moms and kids, Sally Clarkson's book, Different. Her and her son really sit and dive into what it's like to love a child who lives outside the box. And I bawled through most of that book. And it was incredibly healing, because for the first time, I was like, oh, I am loving him when no one else understands. And so I feel like
nobody needs to understand.
Right. But just to have someone resonate, right?
Yeah.
And to say like, this was hard, but this is what I saw in him. And I saw, so I think that is a really good one. Stacey Eldridge writes an awesome book called Becoming Myself, I believe is what it's called. And again, just as a woman, I feel like that was an incredibly just becoming who you were meant to be.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of other amazing ones, but
I say this because you actually recommended it to me. And I remember listening to her podcast, Allie, Beth, Stucky.
Yes,
and it like, I was so put off by it at first, because like she's, and I don't agree with everything she says by any means, but like her assertiveness in, like, she has a book called You're Not Enough and That's Okay. And I loved it. And that's a great book, because it's freeing, because it's like, oh, it's not about me. It's it's a really great book. So we'll put all those in the show notes.
Yeah.
So definitely check those out as my dog walks away and makes clicky clacky sounds. And I'm sure as they walk, the camera goes. Any parting words you'd like to say? We didn't touch. I know we kind of went a little ADD, but
this will definitely be like more conversations,
because like we're also trying to find. Like, I think people understand we're new to this. We're gonna find like our thing of like how we always start the show, or like we're gonna find our way. But the point of this podcast is progress, not perfection. We're starting something because we think it's important. Because like, I think my goal with this is like, I want to be like a big sister to younger girls, whereas your mission is like kids and families, and mine's like,
and I wish speaking life into the health world in a way that I don't always.
I think that's where we meet. So it's we try to speak life in the health world, and then you're talking about kids and families, and I'm talking more about like young girls, kind of like, and it's just
absolutely
it's all
love it,
important. But like, I just think about like I was on birth control and I thought that that was the only way. But something in me knew that was not. I was like, this is wrong. Something doesn't feel right. And luckily, like my parents did teach me
to ask questions,
to ask questions, to question the regular Joes about everything, and listen to your body and like it to a certain extent. And so I wish I would have had more women to go to ask about natural birth control or being a new wife or whatever. Like I want that to be, I want this to be like, we're your big sisters or your mom who's needing some encouragement. Maybe you're sitting there at home listening to this podcast or watching it on YouTube and something Emily said really resonated with you. If it did, it helps us. If you would, well, just like the podcast, it would really help us. But also know that you're not alone. If you're in a difficult phase with your kids. Yeah. You're in a difficult phase of growing you as just a person, like outside of being a parent. I think we're all growing and learning and becoming healthy at our own pace, if that makes sense. Yeah. And Emily is like 30 steps ahead of me, but I'm chasing. I'm trying to be as healed.
It's just different. Yeah. We have different stories. Yeah. And I would say also, if anything in this talk resonated with you, like don't be so quick to just dismiss it. Yeah. Like lean into it. And what are you supposed to, if something is stirred in you, I think a lot of the moms I see in this health world, as well as just moms, and just homeschooling moms and all that stuff, like there's this fire in them to fight for something. And I think that's so, just my encouragement would be if that is like a spark or a flame, don't just dismiss it. Yeah. Let it grow. It's meant to be there. Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you guys next week on Under the Sun podcast. Bye.
Jazz hands.
Jazz hands. Maybe that's what we'll do. We'll make little cartoons of us going, jazz hands. Maybe. I don't know.